Welcome to another episode of the Way of BJJ podcast, where we talk to interesting people about everything Jiu-Jitsu related. So please leave us a 5-star review, as that really motivates us to keep on creating these awesome contents. And we're also currently looking for sponsors. So just imagine that this is where I will be telling people to buy your shit. So as always, please do not listen to this podcast around your kids, as there are foul languages, highly inappropriate analogies, and it's just gonna be a bad day for you. So let's get to the podcast. Yo, what's up, Ryan?
I feel like that was like a almost like a dispute handshake, almost like the way you start a roll, where it's like slap bump. Now we're gonna get into
Slap
it.
bump now is a debate.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a heated debate. Who's number one?
It's not gonna be heated debate. Don't worry.
Nice. Well, yeah. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Yeah, no worries.
So this is the Way of BJJ podcast, as you know. I hope you have listened to a few episodes.
Yeah, I've listened to a couple.
Yeah, so you know that we are highly unfocused. We're all over the fucking place.
Yeah. Well, if we get off on a tangent, you gotta steer me back.
I try, but sometimes it's so much fun just to go off on a tangent,
Yeah.
right? Especially the episode with the tuna. With Tuna, when it was just me and Tuna like talking about bullshit, he just goes off to like God knows where. And then I'm like, okay, you know, I can rein him back, but this is kind of fun too, you know?
Yeah, well, he's a fun guy, right? Yeah. So it's easy to kind of keep going down that route.
Right. So I'm here today at Advantage Jiujitsu, right? Out here in Richmond, specifically. Is this still considered Steveston, or?
I think this is technically Steveston. I think this place brands itself as Steveston, but I don't know by like the city district if this is technically Steveston, but it's close enough to call it Steveston.
Okay, yeah, because there's a certain prestige that comes with being in the Steveston area.
It's like the Kerrisdale of Richmond.
Right, Kerrisdale of Richmond, nice. That's a good way to put it, yeah. Yeah, so basically neighborhoods for old people.
No, I wouldn't say old people, but there's probably like half the restaurants. So it used to be a Japanese fishing village, right? So that's why there's so many like sushi shops.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of pharmacies, a lot of coffee shops, a lot of things like that. So
yeah. And it's amazing here too. It's so beautiful. Like sometimes I would just take my family out here, right? Just for the day, you know. There's
it's
so much to do.
It's kind of like one of those kind of touristy destinations for people that come to visit Vancouver. Like you might go to Stanley Park one day, you might go Granville Island, you might go to Steveston. It's kind of like a nice area that way. And then we are kind of the only gym in this kind of neck of the woods. So it helps anybody that kind of lives in that kind of area. It's like we get their first, probably their first chance at jiu-jitsu. So.
Right. Yeah, and it's great too. Do you get like a lot of foot traffic? Like people walking by and just looking in and just going, hey, what the hell is going on here?
I wish we did. Unfortunately, a lot of the businesses around are like all like there's a beauty shop across the place. Like we're not going to get a lot of ladies and their seniors that are going to want to come in and try jiu-jitsu.
They're like, hey, just got my nail done. Let's do some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
not going to happen.
There's a couple Montessori's around here and like daycare places. So that's helped our kids program a lot, I think.
Cool.
But I think we need some sort of like big, at least in this area, like a big restaurant or like a grocery store or something like that that's going to like bring people here to get more notice that way. So most of our stuff comes from online stuff.
Strip club, that's what you guys need.
Strip club, yeah. Well, I guarantee if I've got enough trouble finding zoning for my gym, that's not going to be on the menu for
God damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would be attracting all the bouncers and all that kind of stuff, you know.
And we don't really want them, honestly.
Like stay away, guys.
Like you trained today, right? So you saw kind of like we've got very much like a community feel. Like it's not like it's we like to be like a high level gym that produces like high level competitors, but at the same time we're not going to be like an Atos, an AOJ, like something like that where their sole focus is competition. Our sole focus is just like spreading the word of the sport and kind of like opening people's eyes to how much fun it can be to train, rather than it be like this die or like do or die kind of endeavor that you're going into. Like you're driving into the parking lot nervous.
True.
You should be driving in the parking lot with like a smile on your face, like, oh, I get to go train tonight, rather than be like, oh, I hope that guy's not at class tonight because I don't want to have to train with them.
Yeah, for sure, man. There are. I've been to schools like that before where you're just so nervous that, oh, I hope so and so is not going to be there tonight or whatever, right? Or you'll be like at the parking lot and you're like, man, it's still not too late. I could still turn around and go home.
Well, if you are in that situation too, though, like where you want to be ultra competitive, we're more than happy to like recommend a gym that would be like, hey, this is probably a good fit for you.
Right.
Right. Because like if we're not offering what they're looking for, like at the lower belts especially, I think a lot of our guys get a benefit out of having a lot of high level people here. Like I don't know if you saw the pictures on the wall, but I think we've got like a dozen black belts, like close to 10 brown belts and stuff. So there is a high level here, but if you're looking for like that hardcore, like almost like Navy SEAL training style gym, it's like, that's not us, man.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. Like we'll have sessions where if people are training for competitions, we'll put them through the ringer, right, to kind of get them ready. But that's not the general format of our class. Our class is just to like make things as welcoming as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, I trained here for a while as well, so I know I always have a smile on my face after every class. So yeah, I think that is like.
Thank you then.
Yeah, dude. I think that is like the, as you said, that is the most important barometer of whether you're in a good school. Well, if you're in a school that's the right fit for you or not, right? Because I'm sure like some people come in here expecting like really tough, like almost like fights, and then they'll probably leave here going, that wasn't what I was looking for. But
I think there's a place for everything,
Right.
right? Where you have those people that you can have those really tough rounds with. But if for whatever reason, when people get paired up for sparring and you end up with someone that's either lower level than you, lighter than you, maybe you're training with like a woman that you're stronger than, you've got to have that kind of like compassion a little bit where you kind of meet in the middle a little bit.
Right,
and
right.
you kind of, you not necessarily sacrifice that round, but you use that round to improve yourself in the techniques that you're weak at because you give them the opportunity.
True.
Rather than just trying to win every round.
True. Yes. Because there are a lot of tough rounds here if you look for it, right? Like fucking Judo Ben, Jesus Christ, that guy.
Judo Ben.
Yeah, and
Paulo,
I
Big
remember,
Mike, Brock, Evan, Gord.
Yeah, before Herb
Alejandro,
was injured, then it's impossible to get off of his fucking side control, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you want to work your side control escape, dude, okay.
Yeah,
find somebody like that,
I just like to say, like, at least with the membership we have, if there's something you're looking to fix, you can find it, type of thing, because again, just having such a community of like experienced guys, I self-deprecate myself a lot where I'm kind of like, someone asked me a question about like triangles. I'm like, don't ask me. Go ask Paulo. Go ask like Tristan. Go ask those guys because they're way better at this than me. If you want to know about like leg locks or back attacks, like ask me. If you want to know about passing, ask Brock. If you want to know about like fundamentals of guard, ask Evan. Like we can kind of like almost like, I don't know what it is, spread out the knowledge because everybody's got a different game. Right. And there's certain things that work for some people, body type wise, game wise, that don't work for everybody. So if you can kind of like look to the people that are really good at it, it's great. If you only had like one black belt running the gym, it's like you're learning their game. You're not able to like develop your own game. So kind of like with that kind of conceptual approach that everybody's talking about now, where you kind of let them figure it out for themselves. Like I never want to tell someone, if you're going into a tournament, you should pull guard or you should take down. I always just say, plan out the first 30 seconds of the match.
Right.
Outside of that, like it's going to come down to like your abilities. But if you know in the first 30 seconds you want to stand or you want to pull, like do it as quick as possible, right? Rather than be like, or even if your game is like, I have no cardio, I'm going to try and stay on the feet for as long as possible. Like have that in your mind when you're going in, but outside of that first couple minutes, it's not going to really matter because you're going to be reacting to your opponent rather than them reacting to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, for sure. I know you're very humble in that way, right? Telling people that, hey, if you want to learn this and that, go talk to Brock or Tristan or whatever. But the truth is, you still are very well knowledgeable and versed in those areas because you are a U.S. second degree now or first degree?
I'll get my second degree next year.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, so almost there, almost a second degree.
Almost there. I've been training almost 17 years now.
And you are you are a student of the game. I know you study a lot. I know you compete a lot as well. So, yeah.
I've taken my focus off of my personal growth a lot, unfortunately, because I kind of run the kids program. So I look more at what the kids are needing to add to their game rather than what I need to add to my game. I kind of think like, this is my A game, I just need to get better at my A game rather than adding extra pieces that much. But again, I don't really compete at anything outside of local tournaments. Like I'll be 35 in January, so I can compete Masters 2. So I might go.
I'm looking forward to that. You're like,
yes. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I can compete Masters 2.
And be the youngest in that category. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm like, I got 5 years in this category. So that's kind of like my goal for the next year is to go to the Masters and just see what the level's like. I know that when you compete Masters, it's a little bit different than competing at the adult division. Probably 3/4 of the guys are roided up. And then on top of that, at the weight I compete at 181. So a lot of those guys want to be on top. So if I can just work my bottom game for the next year and then try and turn that into, even if I'm not winning by points, like, again, the gym's name's Advantage, right? I'm more than happy to win a 0-0 match by advantage. I don't have to score points, but
is that how the name came about?
Honestly, it came about because we were thinking about like if parents are signing their kids up for a gym, and they see all these different gyms on the list, like what seems most appealing, because I honestly, the only reason I had the confidence to open up this gym was I was teaching at another local gym that has like world-class having a stroke right now, kid competitors that have won the worlds multiple times. And I kind of saw how their program ran, and I ran it for maybe like 2-3 months when they were away on vacation. And I had a parent come up to me and say, hey, you run this program the same way that they run it. And usually when they leave, their kids' program drops off in attendance like significantly. And we haven't seen that since you came in. And I was always asking the parents for feedback too, like what am I doing wrong? What should I be doing right? Things like that. So that gave me the confidence that to run a gym with only adults, it could still break even. It could still make a little bit of a profit. But really, like, I think your adults program makes you maybe like a 10% profit. But then when you add the kids in, that's where the profit really kind of goes up, right? So like we had our Halloween party today, and I think we had like 38 kids come. Sometimes
Halloween's such a big deal for the kids, you know.
Well, that's like their Christmas party.
Yeah,
right.
It was way more fun than Christmas to them, right?
Oh, for them, for sure. Yeah. And just kind of like lightens the mood. I think the parents appreciate it too, right? Where they see kind of like this gym cares. They're doing something for the kids.
Right.
Like it's not all about business. It's kind of like we're willing to take a bit of a loss on this class by buying all these decorations, buying candy for them, setting up games, doing different things, and getting a bunch of extra volunteers to help. It kind of like makes it more of like a community feel rather than just like I don't want to throw GB under the bus, but
you are.
I will. But it's like they're kind of like, you got to buy your gi for this much. You got to do this. You got to do that. Yeah. If you want to come to the Halloween party, it's going to cost you $35 or something like that. Like,
really?
I don't know that.
Okay,
I'm just using that as like an example where it seems like everything has an extra cost, whereas when I think the parents kind of see the effort you're putting into the program and the attentiveness that you're kind of putting into it, and like being at the tournaments coaching, having 3 coaches at the tournaments in case there's like multiple matches going on at the same time. that because most of the kids too, they're not choosing to come. Their parents are choosing to come, right? So when one parent chooses to bring their kids here and then they see the program runs good, or well, I should say, my poor grammar, but they then tell that to the other parents, right? Versus it being like, I don't know, some Taekwondo gym where it's like $20 for belt testing or this or that, right?
No,
Like,
you're throwing Taekwondo gyms under the bus.
well, I don't need to throw anybody under the bus. I'm not meaning to.
Because they are doing that themselves. Because right? I mean, we're not making this up, right? They're actually doing that.
Well, yeah, they do it. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I'm more just like we never charge anybody for
Yeah.
belt promotions. We never do any like belt testing. It's nothing like that. It's kind of, and we don't do any promotions by attendance. It's just we see kind of like how fast the kids are progressing. That's how they get their promotions. If they want to have the chance to compete at a tournament that's in the next kind of 3-4 months, we'll hold off on a promotion so they have a better chance of succeeding. Not that we're trying to sandbag them, but there is a lot of that around locally. I don't know if you've seen, but some of the kids are pulling off some crazy moves, like an 8-year-old pulling off a berimbolo. It's like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
How's he a white belt? Like this doesn't make sense.
So he can win the tournament, obviously.
He can win the tournament, he can come home with a gold medal, but it's like, did you really win your division or did you just beat up a bunch of kids that have only been training 6 months?
Yeah. So here's my question then. Where do you draw the line, right? Because there are, obviously as a business, right, you're gonna need to build up the community and everything because it's good for business, right? Let's be honest, right? It's good for the bottom line. It's good for referrals. It's good for everything, right? But when does it become too much and then it becomes culty? Because that's something that I think it's kind of I wouldn't say unspoken, but like something that's kind of commonplace in jiu-jitsu, right? But where do you draw the line? I mean, do you see there's anything wrong with trying to run a business by maybe implementing some type of culty practices?
I wouldn't say it's wrong because there are a lot of businesses that succeed really well with kind of having that like, honestly, like team cult mentality. I would just say it's probably opposite from like my core values and my business partners, Brock and Evan. We don't believe that there should be some, like, I don't know if you remember when, I don't know if that was a thing when you started training. Like, when did you start training?
2008.
2008, so you're a year after me. So it used to be like you didn't go to other gyms.
Right.
Right, you like your techniques were secret, right? And then like YouTube, stuff like that kind of like dissolved all those things. I would say if you're trying to take ownership of your students, that's where it's an issue. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything wrong with developing like a team mentality and kind of telling everybody in the gym like, hey, you don't need to win your roles. You don't need to leave the class feeling like, oh yeah, I beat that person, I feel good about myself. You need to think about how to help that person get better and things like that. So that could be interpreted as culty. I think it's more of like, I came from playing team sports, so I think that's more of like a team sports mentality, where if you know you can beat this person, you almost like let them get to a good position and trying to escape, rather than trying to just win every round every time. And like your class is your competition. It's like if you want to go compete, you compete against another gym. If you want to go train in another gym, feel free, go for it. If you want to do a 2-month membership here and then a 2-month membership somewhere else and then come back after 2 months, like we're completely fine with it. It's more like I look at it as more like we're like a restaurant. We're like a service business. I wouldn't be mad at someone that comes to my restaurant once a week that goes to another restaurant for 2 weeks, right? It shouldn't bother me. I should be confident in my service that I'm providing, rather than it be something that you're almost like trying to control the person that is a member,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
No.
And there are gyms that are like that, right?
Right.
And
but is there anything wrong with that though? I mean, if nobody's getting hurt, right? I mean, I can see that if by implementing some culty tactics and then people get hurt, such as, I don't know, so let's say sexual assault or something, right? Then that's 100% wrong, right? But if
yeah, no.
none of that happens, but they're only using that for profit and business gains, but nobody actually gets hurt. Is that so bad?
That's a really tough question to answer. I would say, so I don't know if you know the whole like GB Vancouver saga story. I'm not going to get into it because I wasn't part of it. But there was things that got down, and that's how kind of PTT got started. And it's never crossed my mind, right? Like I've always been kind of like any instructor, like there's no chance of them ever like getting into like some sort of romantic relationship with any of our members. It's like you don't dip your pen in company ink, right? Like that's kind of off the table, right? Regardless of which way it's coming from, right? It's like it's almost like someone meeting I don't know, like trying to date their doctor or something like that, right? It's like this should be off the table. This should be not even on the equation. I see that it's very prevalent in the community, so I can see why it is a valid question. I just again the leadership part of our gym is completely not on board with it, and like there's two different types of culty things, right? It seems like culty stuff always ends up in like some sort of like sexual thing where like one guy's sleeping with a bunch of people's wives or something like that. I think because we've almost like snuffed it out at the start that it's never going to be an issue. But culty behavior, put it this way, we don't push our merch, right? We don't force like anyone to buy our t-shirt, to buy our hoodie, to buy our gi, anything like that. We kind of like let them have their own freedom from jump, where when they come into the gym, we say like, hey, here's the deal. You can sign up for 3 months, you get a free gi, or you can buy a gi for us for this price. Or honestly, you can just go on like Facebook Marketplace or Amazon and like buy a gi. Like it doesn't matter to us. We have no gi policy. Anybody that comes from like another gym that has a gi that's like patched up with it, it's like, yeah, you can wear that in class, no big deal. Just don't wear that at a competition, right? So that people don't get confused.
Right.
So I think we kind of avoid it a little bit. And I don't know if that's a benefit or I think it's a benefit for people that have been through that scenario before, where when they've seen like, oh, I sign up and I've got to buy their gi, I've got to buy their t-shirt, I've got to buy their hoodie, I got to buy their rash guard. And we kind of say like, hey, you don't have to do any of that here. You can just come in, just come to class and like wear what you want. So it's like, that's like almost like a sales point. But I do understand from a business perspective, if your sole form of revenue is adding new members that you know are going to fall off, because let's be honest, right? Probably only 50% of people stay with it for more than 6 months, right? And then after that,
I don't know.
if that, well, again, I don't know, like we've done a couple different things to try and like keep new members, but if that's your point of view, it might as well get as much like
sleeping with them wasn't one of the tactics, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely, definitely not. But it's more just like might as well get as much blood out of this nickel as I can, right? If I know they're going to probably leave in 6 months, I might as well take them for what they're worth. But I also kind of figure, I think people are pre-sold on jiu-jitsu, so no one really comes into a jiu-jitsu gym for their first class without having watched a couple YouTube videos or watched the UFC or something and kind of understanding what it is. It's not like you're walking into like an Anytime Fitness and you don't know how it works and then you get signed up to a contract. The other thing we do is we don't have any locked-in contracts. Right. So it just kind of lets people know that like, hey, we're here to like sell jiu-jitsu. We're not here to like sell ourselves to you. And then I think that puts the framing on like we're not trying to be like culty, we're just trying to like provide a good service.
So I guess the real issue then is that even if their intentions in the beginning weren't to do all those nefarious things with their with their students or whatever, right? But just by using those culty tactics, it almost kind of leads to it, right? Whether you wanted to or not, right? Because that's like human nature, right? That's how cult eventually forms, right? So I think that's why we have to be very careful with that, right? So
I would say it's human nature for some people. I wouldn't say it's human nature for everyone.
no, but
But people that seek
but
power.
people who are willingly, you know, tacking on those culty strategies one after another, willingly doing it and seeing nothing wrong with it,
Yeah.
right? Those are the people that will eventually go down that path, whether they intend to or not, right? But for people like you and I, we're like, you know, we're not gonna do any of that right from the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And then there's no issue of us ever going down that road, right? That's how I feel.
Yeah, it's kind of. I think it's so. Jiu-jitsu's changing a lot. I think you can agree that like with the rise in no-gi, it's becoming way more of a sport than a martial art.
Right.
And I think back in the day when we both started, it was way more of like a martial art in the sense that most of the classes were gi. There was a sensei. Like I don't even let people call me sensei. Like I just be like, I'm coach. Like
Well, I'm only senpai.
yeah. No, but I find there's people that they find this position of authority
Right.
and they lean into it.
Intoxicating for them.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like a drug for them when they call up someone to like do their billing or something and they're like, hey, it's sensei calling. Right? Where they've kind of like assumed this personality
Right.
that isn't necessarily improving the sport, it's improving their own confidence, right? And yeah, I don't know if you followed the whole Lloyd Irvin thing, but like he had pretty much like, I don't want to say brainwash these guys, but had been like, this is the best way to success and you've got to follow my plan. And all these people that were looking to succeed kind of followed this plan, right?
Yeah, I thought he went away, but then apparently not, because one of his guys just won the ADCC.
I think probably
trials.
he's probably a good coach. I just think his mentality isn't something that would be, I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess it's still around and
Copacetic.
relevant after all
Yeah.
that. So that's that's
But
pretty interesting.
that's kind of where I look at it. Like I feel like I should be like a hockey coach more like, and again, like when I was playing youth hockey, we'd go for pizza after the game, not like, hey, let's give like a life lesson in the locker room after class, right? So it kind of like changes the vibe a little bit, right? So I always kind of say, like, don't call me sensei. If you need to call me anything, call me Ryan. If you need to want to have some sort of authority, call me like coach or teacher or something. But as soon as I step off the mats, I'm just the same as you.
Right.
Like we're not like I've got authority on the mats in the sense that I'm yelling to be like, everybody like circle up. There's the technique. But outside of class, it's like there might be some like high-powered lawyer or like some like real estate developer or something like that that's like in the class. I'm like, hey, I've got questions for you, man. Like I'm going to pass it.
More money.
Yeah, I'm going to pass it back to you now. I'm not going to be the one that's kind of like, hey, you should respect me in this position.
Right.
Kind
But
of like,
that's another cool thing about the jiu-jitsu community, though. You never know who you're gonna meet, right?
well, I think you find a lot of people that want to challenge themselves, right? You find not necessarily go-getters, but people that are like you could be. I don't know. You could be working for the city. You could be a plumber. You could be a like
CEO.
CEO of something. But it's like if you want looking for this extra challenge in your life, you find that person, and because of that, like the like-mindedness of most of the people in the gym, you're able to like make connections easier, versus meeting someone that's like super like anxious, like has some sort of like serious fears, things like that. Like those people don't usually end up sticking around. So when you're around, like you're sitting after the mats after a class for like 20 minutes and you're kind of like having a back and forth, you have like something in common, which is like your mentality, right? Versus someone that's, living life in fear, living life in like.
So because interesting how you said that when we first started back in like late 2000s. You started what, 2006, 2007?
2007.
Yeah, so around the same time, right? I started 2008. Back then it was more like a martial art, right, as you said. Because I remember when I went to my first jiu-jitsu academy, right? It was jiu-jitsu, but then periodically out of nowhere they would be like, hey, let's put on some gloves, and now let's do jiu-jitsu with ground and pound and stuff like that, you know? Yeah, so.
Well, I think it was more fighting then, right? It was like I remember the first couple years I was training, there would probably see like 3 or 4 motorcycles in the parking lot, and like guys leaving class and like smoking weed after class, and like just like hard guys, like really like hard people. I was 17 at the time, so I kind of thought like, yeah, I want to be that. I want to be that guy. And then after getting hit in the head a couple times, I'm like, no, I definitely don't want this. But now you see people driving up with their minivans, like dads that have their kids in the class and they join in the class, the adults class after. Like it's become more of like I guess like a sport.
Yeah. So how do you guys draw that balance?
Just have individual conversations with certain people, and some of them don't get it that quickly. Where you kind of say like, hey, you're a 150 or 250 pound guy going against a 180 pound guy. You're using all this strength, all this aggression. Like you can dial this back a lot, and you're going to get way more out of it than just kind of smashing this guy for 5 minutes, right? At the same time, we have a ladies only program, which is great because it gives ladies a chance to train with other ladies, but then also make like friendships where they can come into like a normal class. Not that a normal class wouldn't accept ladies, but they can come into a normal class and they can almost like girl talk, be like, that's a good guy to train with. Avoid that guy. Right? They can kind of like give them that little bit of feedback. And then from my perspective as a coach, if I see somebody that's going a little too hard, or you kind of see consistently they're using too much aggression, too much intensity to win their match, it's like you're not using technique here. You're using just the fact that you're bigger and stronger to win this thing. So then I'll be like, next round you go with Herb. You go with someone that's...
So you understand how that felt.
Yeah, so that you understand how that felt. And then if they don't get it after a little while, it's kind of like, well, they don't get to choose their partners. Right. We choose their partners for them so that they don't have the opportunity to be in that position.
So what about on the flip side? What happens if you see somebody who's always like so timid and so like not using aggression and just getting smashed all the time? Would you actually tell them to try to turn it up a little bit?
Yeah, I would tell them to turn it up, but everybody's on their own path, right? So somebody might come in here they might be in their 40s, they've had double knee replacements, they might be kind of like, I gotta take it slow, right? So it'd just be like, tell your partner that in advance so that they know where you're coming from. And you know that they're gonna respect that of you. And if they don't respect that of you, that's a problem for me to handle, right? So it's not like their problem. But we have a rule too where it's like you don't have to train with everybody. If there's someone you don't want to train with, you don't have to, right? So if you've trained with someone and you're timid, you're smaller, you've got a neck problem and they grab your neck all the time, it's like you don't have to train with them. You can say no, right? You don't have to be like...
Nobody should feel offended or anything, you know?
Yeah, there's no honor code of like, oh, they asked me to roll, I got to roll. Yeah. Like you can do whatever you want, right? Like it's I always like to say, like, it's a business where they're paying us. Like, we're not expecting anything of them other than to want to come train.
Right.
So if we don't provide a nice training environment where they feel comfortable training, they're not going to come back and we're going to lose their business. And that's where it's different from like a ultra competitive gym where they're looking to build champions, right? Like, I can't speak for some of the gyms locally, but there's like 2 or 3 that are really, really ultra competitive where a lot of their guys placed really high at ADCC or do really well in local competitions. That's all well and good. But if that's your sole focus, I think you're turning away a lot of people because the training environment is going to be too difficult. And they're never going to be able to get over that hump because they start climbing the mountain and they get pushed back down so many times that they think it's not worth it. Versus having someone kind of like sherpering them up and like getting them over that cusp. And then once they're on the other side, that's their job to like help the next person up, right? So it's, but again, the demographic we're in and the area we're in, we're not going to kind of find that. Like if we were in downtown Vancouver, I'm sure I could find 20, 25-year-old guys that had played former university sports that want to go like hard as hell. But being in Richmond where like the real estate is crazy expensive, it's mostly families, it's like we've got to kind of cater our business to that. And There are the guys that do want to train hard, and again, pick your roles.
Right.
If you want to compete, we'll put you through the gauntlet. We'll kind of make it hard on you, but at the same time, that's not every class. That's the anomaly class. That's not the norm.
Yeah. Right? So how would you describe the type of community you guys have built?
I would say it's incredibly friendly. I think there's a lot of people that have made great friendships with the people they've met in class, especially through the ladies program. Like I don't know if I'm wrong to say it, but I find men usually have a larger kind of close friend group where they can kind of like not see people for months or years, and then their friendship still is just as strong as it was. Whereas with ladies, they kind of lose friends faster, they make friends faster. It's a little bit of a different kind of friendship dynamic, other than like your core kind of like 4 or 5 friends. Like I've got a group of like 17 friends that I see like twice a year, every year. So it's like I don't hear a lot of ladies that have that kind of scenario. So if you find someone that has like a similar kind of mindset, goal set to you, it makes it easier for you to make a friendship. For the guys, we do like a bunch of events every year where we kind of like host UFC night or go out for dinner or something like that. So it gives them opportunity if you don't have a big friend group, or you're coming from out of town, or you're looking to make new friends. It gives you that opportunity. And then again, coming from a similar mindset, like you were brave enough to come in the door. You were brave enough to stick around for 3-4 months. You're like down with kind of similar values for like effort, commitment, like respect, like things like that kind of come out really quickly when you're training with someone. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard the analogy of like jiu-jitsu is like a debate.
No, I haven't. It's usually like, it's like chess or something, you know?
Well, I always like to say, like, if I come out the gate yelling at you, you're going to yell back at me, right? So if the first time we've ever met, and like say I'm training on vacation and I know I'm not going to be at this gym for more than like a couple classes, if I slap hands with the guy and I feel him come at me really hard, really quickly, it's like, well, I got to go really hard, really quickly back at you. But if I feel him kind of like, oh, I don't know this guy, we'll kind of like slap hands and like bump and then we'll go. It's like we could have a really fun roll, right? But if you don't have that kind of realization of like the energy you're putting out is coming back at you, then it makes it difficult to kind of make some sort of like connection, right? Because you're fighting each other.
Right.
You're not kind of flowing with each other. So that analogy always like resonated with me, especially when I'm a guest at some other gym, or I have a guest in here. It's kind of like, well, how are they going to go? I'm gonna match whatever they match. And it's nice to be at kind of like a higher level where you have that opportunity. But I always think like, what if that was a white belt, like that was getting that energy put on them?
Right.
Are they going to like feel this guy's an asshole because they're going hard? It's like, that might not be that. It might just be that their game is, I got to go hard to get to the places I want to be, and then I'll lighten up a bit. Or like I've got to blitz past them rather than kind of slowly passing their guard. Not that they would rip an arm, but if someone were to like blitz past me and like land in an armbar right away, I'd be like afraid that my arm's going to get ripped off because
just because of the energy.
Just because of the energy they're providing, right? So because of that, it's like my defense is going to come up that harder. Versus if someone's kind of flowing with me, I might let them take my arm and then work my defense as best I can, because this is a different energy. This is a different person that I've been training with for a long time. This is going to benefit me to kind of see how they're attacking, rather than just like ripping my arm out right away and getting on top and smashing them back, right? So if you kind of look at jiu-jitsu that way, it's like it's way better to go into a debate with someone that you know well, because at the end of the day, both of you respect each other and neither of you are going to get hurt. But if you don't know someone and you're just yelling at them about your like opinion on like gun rights or something like that, it's going to end up probably in an argument, and then that's going to keep escalating, and it's going to get worse.
Gotcha,
right?
gotcha. So it sounds like you want to foster a community with a training room full of people who are there to have a civil debate. So this way, so this way people can level up in a safe environment without having to worry about getting seriously injured, right?
And if it's someone I know well, I can escalate that debate, right? Because it's like I know you. You know where I'm coming from. I know where you're coming from. We can talk politics now. We can kind of like escalate
And still be friends after.
and still be friends after and like respect each other. But if it's someone I don't know, it's like you want to kind of like rein it in a little bit, right? You don't want to come up against like gunning, right?
Cool.
So.
Yeah. And as a business owner, what have you found to be the best community building tools?
Referrals are huge. Referrals are huge.
Because they refer people kind of like them, right?
Yeah, they're referring their friends. I find kind of the first year of jiu-jitsu, most guys that start, if they didn't start with a friend, bring in a couple friends because they like it so much. If they've kind of like I always refer to jiu-jitsu as like a drug, where it's like it's for some people, it's not for everybody. So when some people take it for the first time, they're like, oh, I'm all in on this. Like I'm taking this drug. If they have other friends that have like similar kind of interests, they try and bring them in. Usually I find people that have, one or two friends that are kind of on the same page. Like say you came from playing competitive sports and there's like former teammates or things like that, you kind of reach out to them and kind of be like, hey, come, like our university career's over. Let's find something new to do. The whole fitness thing, I think, is something we haven't tapped into enough, where it's like an alternative to any kind of like other fitness program where you don't have to run on a treadmill, you don't have to lift weights, you don't have to, like, not that you shouldn't still be doing those things, but for someone that's coming from 0 and trying to get to 100, it's like this gets you at least to 50, right? So once you kind of, I think most people lose maybe like 10 pounds in their first like 3 months of jiu-jitsu because it's like you're fighting from a deficit, so you're always working.
Right.
You're playing a game rather than it's almost like playing tennis versus going running. Like you're playing a game. When you run for that ball, it doesn't feel nearly as hard as like, oh, I've got to make it another mile. Like you're playing a game, right? So, and then the kids program, the kids program, when the parents are really satisfied with the way the program runs, they tell their friends.
Right.
And then you get a lot of referrals through that. So I would say referrals is like the biggest way.
Right. And that kind of expands on the community too, right? Because they're actually talking to their friends who might not even be training, right? They're not, because when they bring out the kids, right? The kids might be training, but the parents might not. Yeah. Right. So, but they will still go and tell their other friends about jiu-jitsu, even though they're not training. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And you find a bunch of kids from the same school, right? So you might have a pair of siblings, one's in grade 2 and one's in grade 4, and one of the kids training here, like 2 of his friends from grade 2 are training, but the parent doesn't want to like drop all the kids, like he wants to drop all the kids off at once. So he drops both of them off. The girl from grade 4, after she likes it for 2 or 3 months, she starts telling her friends, and then you get a couple other kids from that. Like I think that's the biggest thing, because I think there's a lot about brand awareness. When you have to have like an online presence, you have to be advertising for brand awareness. But I think for the adults, it's mostly like they've made the decision themselves. For the kids, they're hearing the referral from the program by the parents.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and that's why the advantage, because if they go by alphabetical order,
yeah, exactly.
A is right at the top.
And again, it sounds like it's a good gym, right?
Yeah, it does.
Not that it's not, but
no, it's a great gym.
We got our cheer too. Advantage.
Nice. Yeah. Some gyms will be a little harder to chant, I guess. No, most of them have like pretty snappy.
Yeah, they got something.
Names. Yeah.
They got their like symbol that they do at the.
Right. No, there is a jiu-jitsu school close to where I live called From the Hills.
Okay.
Yeah, that's gonna be so hard to chant.
Yeah.
From the hills, from the hills. Oh man.
They just go hills.
Right. Sure. So, is there anything you wish you could do better?
I wish we could have a bigger space. That would be the first one. It's just hard to find.
Is it realistic?
It's realistic. It's just in this part of like, again, like I said, I think our competitive advantage is being at this side of town because there's not a lot of competition. So if you're kind of coming from the diagonal that cuts Richmond in half, we're kind of the only gym on this side. So if you're anywhere on that diagonal, you're probably coming here first. Outside of that, I wish we could have, well, I don't want to teach morning classes. I wish we could.
I remember there was a time that you guys tried, right?
Yeah, we tried 6 a.m. classes. It was just killing me.
Yeah, I think I made it to one of those classes.
Yeah, we still have a group of guys that train at like 7 a.m., but they're just on like a WhatsApp chat, and they just kind of decide themselves. Like,
okay, gotcha.
They message like the day before, like, who wants to train tomorrow? What could we be doing better? We could definitely be doing a better job of doing promotions. We don't do a lot of promotions.
Why is that, Ryan? Why?
Well, we just don't want to spend the money.
Okay.
We bring up like a lot of world-class competitors all the time. Like we brought up Isaac, we brought up Andres. We're bringing Andres up again.
Nice. You guys love that guy.
Margot Cicerelli. Yeah, Andres is like, he's a great guy. So yeah, there's things like that we do well. If we could do it more often, it would be great. But we don't want to keep gouging our members for seminars. So we actually upped our rate last year by $5 a month, and we include 1 seminar a year for our members.
Cool.
But when we bring up like 3 guys a year, it's like we don't want to be charging like an extra $100. So if we could figure something out better to do that way, where we could maybe even do some fundraisers or something like that, or like do like an in-house tournament, and then all the profits go to help pay to bring someone up so that the cost is lower. I just find money's so tight for people nowadays.
Yeah.
Where it's difficult to, after people are paying their membership, and then maybe they got a gi from us, but maybe they have a second gi because they are training twice a week and they don't want to do that much laundry, or they want to buy this cool rash guard off this website, buy this cool pair of shorts, and it's like they're committing so much money to it, it almost turns into like hockey, where you're spending like $2,500 a year on the sport. So if we could do anything better to like mitigate that cost,
Right.
that would be something we could do better. I don't know how realistic that is. I think we keep a fairly clean facility, so I don't think we got to do anything that way. If we could add more classes, but I think we've got a fairly full class schedule,
Right.
so I don't think there's that much we could be doing better at this time. But if you ask me again in like 6 months, I might have a better answer.
Right. But that's awesome though. I've never heard of a school like trying to raise funds so they can cover seminar cost and lower it for their members. You know.
Well, something like that, right?
Because
like
cool,
if
you know, I think that's a great idea, and including 1 seminar a year in your fees, that's great too. You know? So.
yeah.
Again, I don't think I've ever been to another school that does that. You know.
Well, we like, again, between myself and Brock and Evan, we really appreciate a lot of like really good instructionals that come out, but then you find when they come in, if you study that instructional, they give you those like little kind of fine-tuning details that really help you adapt the technique. Like for example, when Isaac came, we were going over outside passing and like the back door.
Which Isaac?
Isaac Dordeline.
Okay.
So he has like this system of kind of like hand on hip, hand on knee, passing to like the side that they're turned to, and then when the leg comes over, switching back to the back door, what he calls it, and then when they kind of revert back, you kind of turn them back, and you're kind of constantly chaining back and forth. But the thing we were doing wrong when we were showing it was having our arm extended versus having our arm like next to our head, so that that leg is harder to come in, and then when you do switch to the back door, it comes in. So the fact that we were able to teach off that instructional for like a month before he came, we got a lot more out of it. So we don't just bring someone in and be like, hey, show us your best move. We kind of like train up on what they're good at already.
Right.
And then most of our students can ask like intelligent questions rather than it just be they're blindly learning something that they've never seen before. Right. So little things like that, I think, makes it worth it for us to bring them up. Because if we were just bringing up, say we brought up, I don't know, Craig Jones, and we were like, show us a heel hook. It's like if none of our guys know a heel hook, it's going to be a waste of a seminar.
Right.
But if most of our guys already kind of know 6, 7, 8 different heel hook entries and how to finish a heel hook, he can add those little kind of fine-tuning details that would like really up their game.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice. Yeah. So speaking of seminars, how does that work? Have you guys reached out to somebody and then maybe the price is just too high or whatever?
Yeah. So Brock does all that for us. So I can't speak to it, but usually what we do is we weigh the cost of who's coming up, right? And then what kind of seminar it would be. And then also sometimes we see that someone's coming into town to do a seminar at another gym, and then we might just reach out to them and be like, hey, we've got time Thursday or Sunday if you're doing a seminar Saturday or Friday, and like we'd be more than happy to pay you, like just tell us the fee and bring them over. Or we try and subsidize them a little bit by doing a couple privates with them. So whether it's like myself and another coach or like 2 of our members or something like that, it's like if you're charging $200 for a private, it's like, well, we can book you 3 privates and that'll help kind of make it worth it for us to bring you over, right?
Yeah.
So
cool. And how do you guys know? Because I know a lot of the times it's like bringing up great competitors, right? But how do you know if they are also going to be any good at actually teaching?
So I'll be completely honest. I don't really handle too much of the adults curriculum. I kind of follow Brock and Evan's lead. Like Brock's always been ahead of me in jiu-jitsu, so he's kind of like I always like to use the term like my older brother in jiu-jitsu, where I think when I started he was a blue belt, and by the time I was like a 2-stripe white belt, he got his purple belt.
Right.
So he's always been ahead of me. So I kind of, whatever his thought is, I kind of follow his lead. And then Evan, having run PTT Richmond for so long, has his own kind of connections and then also experience dealing with things like that. So I usually kind of like put my hands up and just be like, if I've got an objection, I'll tell you. Right. Otherwise, if you guys think this is a good idea, let's do it.
All right, yeah, fair enough.
So it kind of makes it easy that way. I handle all the kids program stuff, so it takes that off their plate. So we kind of have like a division of responsibilities.
Right. Yeah. So you got the easy job to handle the kids.
Oh, yeah.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me about it. But no, the kids are fun.
Yeah.
Kids are fun. We had our Halloween party today. I think we had like 35 kids here. So.
Cool. Are you the only instructor for the kids, or?
So usually Evan helps me Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Brock helps me on Saturdays.
Nice.
But then we've also got 2 other parents that kind of help with the class.
Cool.
But the whole curriculum side of the kids stuff is pretty much all, like we always discuss everything, right?
Right.
But it's pretty much up for me to decide, and then for the adult side of the schedule, it's pretty much up for Brock and Evan to decide, and then I teach whatever they show. The only adults class I have like control of is the leg lock class, because that's kind of one of my specialties.
Nice.
So
yeah, so some of the gyms, they would, delegate the kids class to like a lower belt, let's say a purple or a blue belt or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So do you think there's a difference between a color belt teaching kids, or is it better to have a black belt teaching?
I don't think it would be a difference. I think it would be more just how much experience they have dealing with kids. So I know I started teaching kids back at like another gym, like one of the premier gyms in Vancouver. Maybe
Which shall remain unnamed.
Well, you can name them if you want.
No, I don't know which gym.
I'm more just like I don't want to come off like I'm stealing their clout or something.
Right.
But they had produced a couple like PANS champions and stuff like that. So I started teaching there in 2016 or 17. I can't quite remember when. And I pretty much adapted their way of teaching to the way that would suit me best. Like I can't be the same way that their instructors were to their kids, because like the owners of the gym have like a different, I don't know, just way of dealing with kids, like attitude, things like that. So it's like I can't be them,
Right.
but I can see how they formatted their program and have been building off of it since then, since we opened. So I think that like everybody's talking about like this like conceptual approach to jiu-jitsu now, and like things like that.
Dynamics and stuff, right?
All that stuff.
Yeah.
So
that's all everybody ever talks about nowadays, man. Jeez.
yeah. Well, for kids, especially new kids, I find it's difficult. So like what I would do, like usually we would show like 1 or 2 techniques for We do a warm-up that's the same every class because there's going to be kids that come late, and at least they don't miss any of the technique. You get them used to the warm-up. They're almost programmed to do the same kind of thing. And then after maybe like 5-8 minutes, you kind of line them all up. You show a technique, they drill it. You show another technique, they drill it. Then you get into sparring. Now it's more like we do our warm-up again while kids are coming late from school or whatever they were doing before. You positionally spar whatever it is. So say it's takedowns. You might have a kid that's in class that's their second class and they don't know any takedowns. So you get them sparring on the feet. You give them maybe like 2-minute rounds. Then you sit everybody down. You show a technique. And then they get to drill it for like 5 minutes. And then they live spar it again. Right? So it's kind of like you're making them aware of why they need to understand it, rather than it just being like they got to figure it out on themselves.
Right. Because
Like-
I think the argument that I've heard, the argument I've heard is that, hey, when you teach techniques to kids, by the time you are on like step 2 or 3, they're already not listening. So do you find that to be true? Or?
I find it for some kids, but I think when like when you're doing some move like we've been working Yoko Tomonagi, it's like they're never going to figure that out on their own, right? You got to give them a little bit of guidance, and then once they have that little bit of guidance, they might figure out the problems they're having, or when you see a problem, you can fix it, rather than it be like two kids that just lock up and they just kind of stand on the feet for like the whole 2 minutes because no one knows anything, right? Versus having like a little bit of guidance, like
Right.
I can try and do a trip, I can try and do a double leg, I can try and do like a single leg, I can try and do this, I can, like if you kind of give them all those options and they kind of, their eyes open up like, oh, I've got all these different options I can go to, they might find the one that works for them, and then you can improve on that. But going into it blind, especially for new kids, I think adults are a little bit better because the partner they're like paired with might give them a little bit of guidance too. Whereas with the kids, if you're like a 6-year-old and you see like a 7-year-old that you're going with that's a little bigger than you, you're like, I'm just going to throw this kid to the ground, right? They have no compassion. They have no, like,
Sucks to be you.
Yeah. There are some kids that do a good job of coaching, but on the whole, I think if there's a experience discrepancy, the kid that's more experienced is just going to get free reps, and the kid that has zero experience is going to just either not sign up because they got thrown 10 times, or they're either naturally athletic and they can avoid it, but those are like, again, the anomalies.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it sounds like the way you would have to teach the technique has to be a bit different with the kids, right? You have to keep it probably real short, real direct.
Yeah.
So you can direct their attention to the correct intentions that they have to figure out.
And,
right?
and give them, like, I think too, like adults learn really well through concepts, but with the kids, kind of be like, hey, I've taken the post away on this side, I've taken the post away down there. They don't have a post this way. Let's do whatever we can to get them over there, whether it's using your knee, your hips, your arms, whatever it is. You know that you've taken those posts away. Go. I think that's more valuable than just being like someone on top, someone on bottom. If you're on bottom, you got to get on top. If you're on top, you got to stay on top.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
But how?
Yeah. And then you see a bunch of like weird stuff that you would never see at adults, where like you get like double leg pins on the arms, like where they're like almost like high mounted on the arms so that the kid can't use their arms. But it's like if that was an adult, they would turn on their shoulder and escape an arm and then go up to the back. Right. So you see a little bit like, I don't want to see like naivete with the kids, but like there's like situations where the kids just don't have the forethought to understand what's going on. Where again, like an adult that comes in, they've probably seen like a couple videos of jiu-jitsu on YouTube. They've seen the UFC. They've seen something. So they have some sort of idea of what they're supposed to be doing. You bring a 6-year-old in here. They're like, am I doing karate? Am I doing this? They have no idea. So you got to give them a little bit of guidance, but having them figure it out, or what works best for them.
Right.
Like we've got one kid in our class, he's savage with a clock choke. He's like the only one that's really good at it because he's got really strong grips. So most of the kids you try and teach a clock choke to, their grips just aren't strong enough and the other kid can get out. But this kid in particular is really good at clock choke. So after we showed it to him, it's like he tries to force turtle now so that he can get to the clock choke. Right? So it's like when he knows that's his move, he tries to adapt his game to get there. And I think you got to give, if I always like to say, like for beginners, like jiu-jitsu is a tool belt. If you don't know how to use the tools properly, like you're going to be hammering a nail in with the back of a screwdriver,
Right.
rather than pulling out your hammer and using your hammer.
Yeah.
Right. So
which still works, but just not the.
it doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work as well.
Just not the most efficient way
right?
to do it.
And if your tool belt only has a screwdriver and a hammer in it, and you're asked to like cut a piece of wood in half, it's like, well, I don't have a saw yet. I need to learn how to use a saw before I can cut this piece of wood in half. So you need to give a bit of, in my opinion at least, again, who am I to say? I'm no world-class instructor, but you need to give the tools that they can use to then create whatever it is they want to create, rather than just thinking like, I'll just throw them into this shop class with all these tools scattered around the room and like they'll figure out how to do it. Like it sounds good, but like you're gonna have way more, especially for brand new beginners and for young kids that aren't aware of what they should even be doing. Mm-hmm. It kind of
yeah, I like that. I like that approach. I think that I totally agree with that. So you're not completely killing their creativity, but you're giving them, again, the understanding of what the tools are like, right?
It's like, I don't know what they're going to build.
It's basically like, hey, here are the tools. Build whatever the fuck you want, right?
Yeah. But if you, and you can make it easy too. Like you can, like they always talk about games and stuff like that. Like you can make a game of like, I don't want them to grab me. I'm going to try and like capture their dominant hand. And the game is just gripping. But if they don't know how to break a grip, once that kid makes a grip on them, like how are they going to naturally figure out how to do it, right? Versus learning, like you go through 2 rounds, they find they're caught in that grip and they can't break it.
Right.
And then you show them how to break it and then you put them back to sparring and then it's like, oh, now I know how to get rid of this, right? And I can grip back, right? Versus just being like, okay, we're gripping, now we're doing guard passing, now we're doing this, now we're doing side control escape. It's like how is a kid going to understand that they can roll away? If all they know is to shrimp towards the person, how do they know they can roll away? Right. So that's where I kind of have like like we've just recently changed to teaching that way, but not necessarily disagreement with the whole philosophy, but I'm kind of like with, especially kids that have like learning disabilities and stuff too, like they're so all over the place, they're hardly listening. They're like, you're telling them something, they're not really taking it in. That's like where I find having that extra little bit of instruction kind of gives them that tool. And then with the adults, they can, again, because they can get paired up with someone that's a higher level, if they're having an issue, they can literally just say like, how do I break this grip? Right? And they can just ask and they can get told. Right. So.
Yeah, I hate that though. I'm like, just shut up. I'm trying to train too. Fuck, I'm not trying to teach.
But if you're live,
I'm kidding.
No. But if you're live sparring, right, and then you've like posed a dilemma for someone, and they ask you a question, you can just easily be like, okay, you match your thumb up with their thumb, you grab their sleeve, you break it off, and then they let go, and then you grab it again, and they have to do it again. Right. So like you can kind of keep the sparring going. It's like a 10-second break rather than it'd be like a whole cut. Let's go off on the side for 5 minutes and go over this. But yeah, with the kids, some of them are just, they're not looking for it.
Right. But it's got to be pretty fulfilling, eh? To see the kids just.
Oh man, the kids! I hate it when I have to miss a kids tournament because like it's so cool to see, especially when you see the kids that are doing well in the gym do well at tournaments, and it kind of like gives you that validation where it's like, okay, we are actually teaching them something good. Especially when they go up from kids from other good schools and they do well, even if they lose, but if they do well and they maybe just make some mistake points wise, or they go for a position they shouldn't have gone for so eagerly and they get swept or something like that, it's kind of like, okay, they could have won that match. Right. That kind of like...
they weren't like outclassed or anything, they were like right there,
Yeah, exactly. And we only have, I think from the kids that came here as white belts, we've only got 6 or 7 like gray white belts. So they'll be at that division for like 3 years. And if they're going up against like a gray black belt from some of the better gyms in the area, and they can hold their own, like they only get beat by advantage, or maybe they lose on points, but it was like, again, a tactical mistake or something like that, it makes us feel like, okay, we're teaching good stuff here. versus our kids just going in and getting smoked.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. So you started jiu-jitsu a long time ago, right? Have you always trained at the same gym, or have you been through a couple of different ones?
So
What was your journey like?
I started in 2007.
Right.
And I stayed at that gym until maybe, well, I stayed exclusively at that gym until maybe like 2014, something like that.
Crazy.
So I think I got my purple belt there. And then because I opened up my own business, my time constraints were a little different. So then I started training at another gym as well. And then within maybe like 2 years of that, I got my brown belt, and then I started teaching at the other gym and then training at the one gym, because the one gym that we were originally out of had noon class. So I would do the noon class there and then do the evening class at the other gym. So those are pretty much the only two gyms I've really ever been training out of. And then we started here in 2019 pretty much just out of convenience, because the business I had running out of here moved. So, and I just got my black belt, so I was kind of like, hey, like, Brock, like, you wanna come start something on our own, right? So that's kind of the journey. And I'd been competing all the way through. I competed a lot more purple belt and under. I think I only competed maybe handful of times at brown belt, and I think I've only competed 3 times now at black belt.
Nice.
But
yeah, and because we've been talking about like community and gym cultures and stuff like that, right? So are there any, because between those two gyms, right?
yeah.
Was there anything that you liked a lot more, in a community or culture aspect, one versus the other or something?
So the gym that I got promoted all the way through, they were one of the oldest gyms in the area, so they had a lot of senior members. So the training was hard. It was a lot of I could always get tough rounds. And I was again younger at the time and competing at the time, so I wanted those tough rounds. And then the other gym had a lot more of like a family feel. And I remember when they moved from the location they were originally at to the location they're currently at, there was probably, I don't know, 80 to 100 people at their housewarming. And it really made me see like the business side of things, where there's more money to be made in a gym that has a community feel, rather than a super experienced group of people with not necessarily not welcoming, but like standards, like cleanliness standards, expectations of their members, in the sense of like you're expected to treat other members a certain way. And again, the kids program. The kids program, I helped teach at the first gym I was at a little bit for maybe like 6 months, and it was almost more like daycare.
Okay.
Where it wasn't teaching like real jiu-jitsu. And then how orderly the kids program was at the second place I taught at was so much more like formatted, not necessarily discipline heavy, but they set the expectation for the class. So that's kind of the barrier we're coming to here, where we've got so many new kids coming in. We can't have the more senior kids not falling in line, because it sets a poor example.
Right.
Right. So if you've got, say 20 kids out of the class of 40 that they know the deal, and you say line up, and they all like line up perfectly, they're all kind of like sitting, waiting for it. The rest of the kids kind of take note, right? Versus if you have a fairly disorderly class, and the kids that are more senior are kind of running around, or they're not listening to you or something, it kind of sets that example too for the younger kids.
Okay.
So it's like a way to, kind of almost like nip it in the butt before it even happens, where it's like the expectation is you guys should be lined up, sitting down, you should be shoulder to shoulder, no one should be touching each other. If you've got a problem with the kid sitting next to you, just get up and you go to the other line. Like you handle it yourself, rather than it be me having to like yell at kids all the time,
Sure.
right? So like if we've got a senior kid that has like a new kid next to them, and they're like touching them a bunch, and again, it happens all the time with the kids class, right?
Yeah, of course.
So something like that happens, the other kid will just get up and like, right? So if you're a more junior kid in the class, but the same thing's happening to you, you see that example. It's like it doesn't even need to be explained to you,
Right.
because a lot of kids pick up off of each other kids' like behavior, right? Same thing with like the way that the games play, the way that the sparring should go, everything like that. It kind of I saw it actually on Thursday. It was really nice to see. We've had a kid that's been fairly problematic for the past like 4 or 5 months. I think he's been coming. He hasn't been coming that long, but he's probably 5 or 6, and he was sparring with a kid that was like 4, and he was much bigger than him, and he was coaching them to like help get out of techniques. And I'm like, I've never taught him to do that, but I know that when the bigger kids had sparred with him, that's what he did, or that's what happened to him rather. So it's like you can kind of see that kind of pass along.
Nice.
So kind of developing that kind of culture in the kids program helps a lot, and I think it's just echoed from the way that our adults program runs, right?
Cool.
So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So it sounds like from a business standpoint, right? The second gym that you went to was probably a more successful business.
Yeah, definitely more
The first
successful
one, right?
business. Definitely more successful business, but the culture vibe difference.
Right.
Like they would do like UFC nights where it's just for like, let's go out and let's all just have dinner and watch the UFC.
Right.
The other gym was like, we're using this as a marketing tool.
No.
We're gonna like go out to this restaurant and we're gonna like try and give away
Flyers or
passes and
whatever,
flyers
yeah.
and stuff like that, right? So it was like a different mentality, and I think that speaks volumes to your members when they kind of see like, hey, these people care about us, versus like, oh, we're a tool to show this group of 15 people over here are all members of our gym. Here, take a flyer, right? So.
Yeah, I know when you do like a member appreciation thing, it has to be all about them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so.
And then just eating costs too on certain things, right? So like if we host the UFC night, it's like we buy a bunch of pizza, we throw the UFC up on the TV, we like everything. It's like we take that as a business expense rather than it be like, hey, we're going out for dinner, everybody separate bills.
Yeah. Then why even bother,
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Nice. Yeah, and you have obviously visited a lot of other gyms, over the wherever you travel and stuff, right?
Yeah, whenever I go on vacation, I try and visit other gyms. I was at B Team and 10th Planet Austin.
Oh, nice.
Earlier this year.
Nice. Yeah. Did you do one of the pro training sessions?
I wasn't. I got to be invited.
You have to be invited to?
Yeah, you got to be invited.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I was able to train at the 10th Planet Open Mat with a couple of the pros,
Right.
but didn't go well for me. So.
Oh man, yeah, jiu-jitsu is so. I guess the pros, just the amount, the sheer hours and hours they put on and training and sparring every single day is just beyond what we can do right now.
Well, I think too, just the kind of, again, it was a 10th Planet Open Mat, so it was no-gi. Just the difference in style, I noticed so much, where no-gi guys are all head and arm all the time, and gi guys are looking at your hands because they're looking for wrist control.
Right.
So when you go from a gi to no-gi, you've got to think about that, and I didn't realize it till I was there, because like I had been head and arm so much and trying to like shuck my way out of things. After 2 days of training no-gi, I put my backpack on. And I'm like, why are my traps killing me? Because it's like I'd been shucking my shoulders.
Dude, that is such a good observation, because I'm having the opposite issue right now. I've started training in the gi again a lot more because I'm finding it fun again.
Yeah.
Right. And then now I'm like, oh, they grab my sleeve so easily.
I can't head and arm them.
Yeah. And then they grab my sleeve like instantly. I'm like, oh, holy shit! Now what do I do? Yeah.
So like I would always go wrist control, and then they would like circle it out, and then just like come underneath and like head and arm me. And so just seeing the difference in styles, because I pretty much exclusively trained no-gi when I was there. So, and all those guys train exclusively no-gi, right? So
right.
it was one of those kind of eye-opening things a little bit, where when I came back, I kind of like reiterated that with, not that any of our like high-level guys only train no-gi, but kind of telling them like, hey, when you're training no-gi, don't worry so much about the wrists. Worry about like underhooks and like.
Right. So there is
getting around
something
the head.
to, if you want to get world class at no-gi, it's probably best to just train no-gi, right?
If you want to get world class, but I would say until you're maybe like purple belt level,
we're talking like highest level, right?
Yeah,
but I think
until
coming
you're
up,
like,
it's do both. Yeah.
Until you're purple belt level, I think it's best to do both, because the gi gives you so much more, especially if you're an athletic younger guy, gives you so much more problems, because there's like a 60-year-old guy that can pin you down in the gi, that if you go no gi, you're just gonna be able to bench press him off and like get out of there, and you're not gonna be put in those bad situations that you're gonna have to like learn from, versus if you're an older guy only training no gi, you're gonna get beat by all the younger guys all the time.
The stronger, faster,
Yeah,
got a bit better cardio, everything.
Yeah, so might as well throw the gi on and get a couple small victories and then see what's really working for you.
Right.
Whether it's like, okay, I'm able to get to this position that I'm never able to get to in no-gi. How do I adapt this to my no-gi game?
Right.
Right?
Cool.
So
Nice.
it kind of goes both ways.
Nice, yeah, totally agree. So for jiu-jitsu as a whole, right? The culture of jiu-jitsu, the community of jiu-jitsu as a whole, what do you hate about it the most?
Do I hate about it?
Yeah, is there anything you're like, man, this aspect of the jiu-jitsu culture, I just fucking can't stand it. Is there anything like that?
Nothing really comes to mind. I think the only thing, how intimidating it is, comes to mind, because I think it could be way more accessible if people didn't look at it as like this fighting sport versus like playing a game of like trying to pin someone or trying to get to this position. Like no one's intimidated by chess, right? And again, you use the analogy of chess, but like no one's intimidated by chess.
I am. You have to
You
think.
are? You got to think? Okay, well, you got to think. But I mean, like looking at it as like I think if way more like high level like computer gamers or video gamers kind of saw how much they could apply the same strategies to jiu-jitsu, it would be like it would change their lives in a lot of way. I hate the fact that you get guys that come in expecting it to be a fight, and you have to like almost convince them that it's not, right? Like I think if you want to go fight, you go fight MMA. I look at jiu-jitsu like I look at basketball. Like if all I do is grab the ball from you and dunk on you every time, you're not going to want to play basketball with me. So I've got to like pass the ball back and forth a little bit so that you actually have fun playing. Hate how competitive some of the I don't even want to say gym owners, but the way that some gyms treat their members almost as like show ponies. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just kind of like using this as a generality, where it's like you're a horse in their stable, where it's like they're gonna try and like ride you as far as they can go and like build clout off of their members a little bit. I don't think that's that much of a case, especially locally here, but you see it kind of across the board internationally. And then just the, I don't even want to say like hero worship, but like sensei mentality, where it's like bow down to the sensei, all that stuff. I hate the like nonsense of the martial arts type of thing. It's like, I just wish it was more just treated like another sport, right? So I'd say that's the only thing I would say I hate. I don't really hate anything about it. I would have stopped if I did, right? So.
Yeah, dude, well said, man. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ryan, this has been an awesome conversation. Yeah, so I'm gonna start wrapping it up. So, but if people want to find out more about Advantage, about you, where can they find you?
Well, you can't really find anything about me because I'm not on any social media really. But our Instagram is Advantage JJ on Instagram, and then our email is info@advantagejujitsu.ca, not .com.ca.
Yeah, Canadians.
And then my business partner Brock handles both those accounts. My number is the one that's listed on the website, so if you want to talk to me directly, either give me a call. It's probably best to shoot me a message because I get so many phone calls a day. But just shoot me a text message. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Drop-ins are always welcome. We have open mats on Saturdays, so you can always come by for an open mat on Saturday. And then any like stat holiday in BC, we have an open mat at noon, so anybody from any gym is welcome. Yeah. That's
nice.
all I
just
can
like
think of.
that. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review, and we're gonna see you next time.
Cool.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Sweet. Oh, much better, sitting on the chair versus sitting on the floor. Good call there.
I just thought